If you grew up in the 70s or 80s, you probably remember a world that looked very different from today. You remember coming home to an empty house, fixing your own snacks, and being told to go play outside until the streetlights came on. There were no tracking apps on your phone because you didn't have a phone. There was no helicopter parenting because your parents were busy navigating their own lives. While society sometimes calls yours the forgotten generation, psychology says something much more profound. If you were raised by Gen X parents, or if you were a latchkey kid yourself, you likely developed a rare radar for human intentions. That makes you virtually impossible to manipulate today. Your childhood wasn't just a period of time, it was a high stakes training ground for your nervous system. You aren't weird because you prefer to handle things alone, and you definitely aren't broken because you find it hard to trust people. You are operating on a high frequency signal that your brain built before you even knew you needed it. Today, we're going to hit this topic fast and unmask the 5 specific hyper-independent habits you developed and why they prove you possess a rare intelligence. Welcome to MindVeilx, where we dive into the science of the unseen. Let's unmask the mechanics of your mind. The first and most obvious habit you likely possess is an almost pathological need for hyper-independent autonomy. For a child of the 70s or 80s, the concept of help was often a foreign language. You learned very early on that if something needed to be done, whether it was making a sandwich, finishing a school project, or dealing with a bully, you were the only one who was going to do it. In the world of the explained self, this is what we call the internalization of the support gap. Because your primary caregivers were often physically or emotionally unavailable, your brain performed a glitch check and realized that relying on others was a low probability survival strategy. You developed the habit of carrying everything alone. Think about how this manifests in your life today. When you're under a massive deadline at work, or when your personal life is crumbling, do you reach out? Probably not. You put your head down, you isolate, and you solve it. You likely possess the 5 hyper-independent habits that the average person finds intimidating. You don't ask for directions, you don't ask for emotional support, and you certainly don't ask for permission. This isn't just being a loner, this is a high-level neurological tool. You have mastered the psychology of people who raise themselves. While others are secretly drained by guests or paralyzed without social validation, you are a sovereign island. You have realized that once you realize nobody cares, you win. You aren't antisocial. You are just selectively excellent because you've known since you were 6 years old that you are your own best hero. The second habit, and perhaps your greatest superpower, is your intuitive pattern recognition. Because you grew up in an era where adults were often coolly detached or unpredictable, you had to become a master of the vibe check. You didn't have the luxury of being told how people felt. You had to figure it out by watching the way they slammed a car door or the specific tone they used when they said, "I'm fine." This developed into a rare radar for hidden intentions. Today, you can walk into a room and see the social hierarchy in seconds. You pick up on the micro expressions and the science of the unseen that others completely miss. This is often a sign of traumatic intelligence, a survival mechanism where your brain became hyper aware of your environment to keep you safe. This is why you are impossible to manipulate. You see the social mask people wear, and you can spot 7 things only fake friends do before they even finish their first sentence. You have a high bandwidth filter that makes you allergic to small talk because small talk is where people hide their true intentions. To you, words are just noise. You are looking for the data rich signals in their behavior. If someone's vibe doesn't match their words, your brain triggers a brain glitch alert and you immediately pull back. You aren't judgmental. You are just a deep thinker who refuses to be fooled by a low resolution performance. The third habit is one that often makes people act weird around you: the observer's burden. If you were a latchkey kid, you likely spent a lot of time watching the world from the sidelines. You were the quietest person in the room, and because of that, you saw the most. Psychology says that people who don't talk much aren't necessarily shy. They are performing a metacognitive audit of their environment. You have developed the habit of staying calm when everyone else is performing. This makes you intimidating to people who rely on social noise for safety. They see your silence and your steady eye contact, and they realize they can't read you. Your silence is a high-level social strategy. You have realized that explaining yourself is a waste of precious cognitive energy. You would rather be unwanted by a shallow crowd than wanted by staying in a situation that drains your soul. This is why you might be the person who rarely gets invited, or why you are the psychology of people who skip social events. You are missing out, you are protecting your peace. You've mastered the art of the silent exit. When you realize a situation is toxic, you don't argue, you just disappear. You know that your energy is better spent on internal stimulation than on external drama. The fourth habit you developed is the Polymath Advantage. Growing up in a world before the internet meant you had to find ways to keep yourself entertained in the silence. You didn't have an iPad to numb your brain. You had your imagination, your books, and the graveyard of unfinished projects in your garage or your bedroom. People who were raised to be hyper independent often have too many interests. Society tells you to be a master of one, but your brain is likely built for an M-shaped future. You have a high learning velocity. Once you've solved the core mechanics of a new hobby, your brain moves on to the next challenge. You don't lack discipline. You just have an extremely high frequency mind that craves constant data rich fuel. This is why you are the psychology of people who love staying at home, or the person who finds 10 lifetimes wouldn't be enough to do everything they want. You are never bored when you are alone, because your internal world is a vast laboratory of ideas. This makes you a multi-potentialite who can connect dots that the average mind can't even see. Your hyper-independence allowed you to build a portfolio career of skills that make you a threat to any rigid system. You aren't scattered, you are just a deep thinker with a massive intellectual appetite. The final habit is perhaps the most liberating, the black sheep shield. If you were raised by Gen X parents, you likely grew up as the black sheep, or the one who just didn't fit in with the family's expectations. You learned early on that you were different, and eventually you stopped trying to fix it. You developed the rare gift of not needing anyone for your emotional survival. You've mastered the psychology of people who stop reaching out, and the psychology of people who cut everyone off when the connection is no longer authentic. You realize that being the black sheep means you are the only one in the family who is truly free. This is the ultimate rare mindset. You don't post your photos for likes. You don't gossip. You don't treat birthdays like they're some massive social event. You are the psychology of people whose favorite color is black. You value depth, mystery, and truth over the social filler of the crowd. You have realized that walking away silently is your greatest power. You are a sovereign individual who has survived the science of the unseen and come out the other side as a highly intelligent observer. If you recognize yourself in these 5 hyper-independent habits, I want you to stop feeling guilty for your weird need for solitude. You aren't broken, and you definitely aren't lonely. You are simply a rare mind that was forged in a very specific fire. Your latchkey childhood didn't just make you independent, it made you unstoppable. Your rare radar, your silence, and your graveyard of projects are the symptoms of a rare kind of strength. You are the quietest person who sees the most, and you have realized that once you realize nobody cares, you win. But I have to ask, which of these 5 habits hit you the hardest? Was it the vibe check or the silent exit? Tell your story in the comments below. I read as many as I can because your stories are what make MindVeilx a home for the deep thinkers. If this video made you feel a little less weird and a lot more understood, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's keep unmasking the hidden mechanics of your mind together. Until next time, protect your peace,